Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We're here with you guys today in the helicopter tab of the Eastern Bloc Coalition, and once more we have Balanced with us. We're looking at two particular helicopters, really the anti-air helicopters available to Eastern Bloc, the Sokol, which is also available, I believe, to Baltic, because it does come from Poland, and the DHS Mi-24P, which is East Germany, so that is the only coalition is Eastern Bloc behind that helicopter. And is really unique with those Molniya secondary missiles, 26-25 meter range against helicopters, 3150 against airplanes. I really have wanted to love this unit so much throughout my time in the game, and it's such a struggle. But if you're looking at helicopters, you want something for that anti-helo, anti-air sort of role, and these are your two choices, well, hopefully this will help you decide between them.
All right. So basically, when we're looking at these two units, the most important thing is you need to understand that the role for an AA helicopter generally is protecting like your helo openers, right? If you're like helo dropping with a bunch of stuff, or alternatively, basically is like a last resort, or not even like a last resort, or like helping like bolster the AA on like a flank or something like that, right? That's the main purpose of them. Their multi-role capabilities can be nice, but they're not really the most important thing. That being said, as a multi-role unit, the DHS is much better than the Sokol, simply by the fact that it actually has ATGMs that can threaten tanks. The Sokol doesn't really have that.
Decent AP. I've seen worse ATGMs and helicopters for that cost.
It's not the best ATGM, but it certainly gets the job done. It's definitely threatening, and tanks will have to worry about it. Conversely, the Sokol basically it has rocket pods, which are almost always good, but I think in this case, in my opinion, you have so many like amazing like rocket pod options in Eastern Bloc that I don't think it's not really that important. The most important thing when we're looking at these helicopters is their AA capabilities. So here's the thing. When it comes to fighting helicopters, they both have their like perks and their weaknesses. The biggest problem though is that while the 24P has the range advantage, it also has the protection advantage because it's higher HE and like has one armor, which doesn't really help versus AA helicopters, but the HE does. Like the sorry, not HE, HP, higher HP. Yeah,
10 strength
that
as opposed to 6.
Yeah, that helps. The problem is because it has poor optics. If you're fighting like a recon helicopter, like a Tiger, you are going to really struggle versus it. You'll need to pair it up with something else, like either a plane to like provide vision, or alternatively like a recon helicopter, which means you're spending like more activation points across the deck to kind of like allow this thing to properly do the role it does for more expensive than the Sokol.
And
because
like that's more points than just more than just the activation points. That's more points in your opener as well, right? So if this is an escort, it'll start to become less of an escort and more of a heavy investment, which that sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, generally speaking, I would always recommend the Sokol. Unless you kind of like are experienced and you're like whatever, I would always recommend the Sokol because it has medium optics and because it's a small size. That will allow it to more effectively fight recon helicopters like the Ninja and the Patu Tiger. You never want to really open with one usually. You want to usually open with two when protecting a helo drop. But I would always recommend the Sokol over the 24P simply because of how big of a difference medium and poor optics is
hold on.
Case.
Opening with 2 instead of opening with 1, does that apply to just the Sokol, or does it apply to the Mi-24P as well?
I argue it applies to both, which means...
That's a huge extra investment. That's 60 more points if you're getting 2 of the 24Ps.
Yeah, so generally when you're like protecting openers, you want to either open like 2 recon helicopter, or sorry, 2 AA helos and like 2 AA helos, or 2 AA helos like ASF, Helo Hunter, or 1 AA Helo Hunter. Overall though, no matter what you do, it's going to be more expensive doing the 24P option for capabilities that are arguably like not as effective versus like very common helicopters, the Tiger and the Ninja, very common, very strong.
So I guess I have a matchup specific question. So let's say you're going up against USA or NORAD, and you can virtually count on seeing a longbow at some point, whether it's in the opener or not. And so let's say, okay, 1v1 or 2v2 on, for example, Nuclear Winter's coming, and that to me says that there's probably going to be a longbow in the opener. Maybe I'm wrong on that, and if so, I'm happy to hear it. But that seems like a case where I'd rather have that extra range, and if I have to pay for 2 of these and recon helicopters, so be it. If I can take a longbow off the field and sort of assert dominance in the opener against that specific matchup.
The problem is, in a realistic scenario versus someone experienced, they're gonna open with their own their own AA helicopters, right? And while versus DAPS, the 24P can be nice because you have that 10 strength, right? There still runs the issue of like basically they can invest in like 3 DAPS, right?
For the same cost.
Not for the same cost, but for like only slightly more, right? Without sacrificing as much on the field, which is common, by the way. People do big helo openers on nuclear all the time, right? And even if they open with 2 DAPs, right? Like the problem is this: there's a decent chance that like you kill the DAPs, right? Or you trade out, right? And you don't get the longbow.
So you're doing all that work just to trade into cheaper helicopters, and you still don't achieve it. I mean, I guess you only have 4 shots anyway, so if you engage with both of your helicopters at the same time, and they both fire twice, let's say, well, once, twice, well, you're gonna run through all 4, I guess, is the problem.
It's important to note that even versus like the range will help a little bit versus stingers, right? Because you do have the range advantage. The problem is helos close with each other so fast. The biggest thing that actually helps the 24P here is the strength.
Huh.
That's the most important thing.
I'll admit, I'm slightly disappointed by that, but that is a pretty clear recommendation, which is what this whole segment is here for. So, that's the W3W Sokol, the official recommendation of Balance the Man himself. We'll be back here tomorrow with another unit comparison. Ooh, yeah, go ahead.
One last thing. Always update your recon helicopters. That's all I'll say.
Fair enough, fair enough. Okay, we'll be back here tomorrow with another one, guys. See you around.